Through the process of overcoming a serious injury suffered in 2005, Luke came to realize the importance of education and the acquisition of knowledge. He's a tenured communication studies instructor at St. Cloud Technical and Community College and works as a public speaking consultant for Granite City Speech Consulting. He currently lives in Startell, Minnesota with his wife, Kristen. In his free time, he enjoys cycling, listening to podcasts, and watching Netflix. Please welcome Luke Green, leaving the port and setting sail. Leaving the port and setting sail, Luke Green.
Fellow Toastmasters, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you this evening to help celebrate and commemorate our fall conference for District 6. And I love the title that has been given to this weekend's convention, Seeds of Change. The metaphor of a seed is perfect for what this organization stands for. It is an intentional placing of our seeds to develop future growth that we can reap multiple benefits from in the future. However, it's the second half of this title, Seeds of Change, that can be a little bit more elusive. Because change is something that we talk about, a word that we use, a concept that we describe on a daily basis. However, I don't believe that we all truly have an understanding or a good conceptualization of what change actually is. Because we can use change to describe simply the reorganization that Toastmasters has undergone in the last couple of months and will continue to engage in into the future. We can use change to describe a new career that we embark on. And we can also use change to describe proudly wearing plaid pants in public for the first time. Which was a physical joke that I didn't understand that there would be a podium in front of me, so we're operating with change here this evening. But I assure you, those in back, I am in fact wearing plaid pants. So as mentioned, sometimes the most obvious things that exist in our life are hard to put a finger on, hard to analyze. And to help us, I draw from David Foster Wallace's book entitled, What is Water? And in it, he tells a parable of two young fish swimming upstream. And as they're swimming, they encounter an elderly fish swimming in the opposite direction. And the elderly fish says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water this morning?" Two fish continue to swim on. And then one young fish turns to the other and says, "What the hell is water?" Foster uses this to describe what I was discussing, how sometimes the most obvious and present things in our life are hard to put a finger on. And I believe that change is one of these things. Because much like the fish kind of took this water that provides them life for granted, we too don't always fully understand the benefits and power of change in our own lives. So what I would like to do tonight is talk a little bit about this importance of change. Because change is a life-altering force. It allows us to become more educated, allows us to learn more about ourselves, and it allows us to engage in things that we otherwise would not have thought possible. Three different types of change I would like to speak on this evening are as such. The first is the fact that change is inherent within all of our lives. It is an unstoppable force and is kind of subject to the passing of time. Who you are today will not be the person you are tomorrow, will not be the person you are a week, a month from now. So these sorts of changes are oftentimes the very subtle ones, where the change can occur, but you guys will not even understand it has happened until days, weeks, months, and sometimes years and decades later. The second type of change I want to talk about is the change that is unplanned and unexpected. Oftentimes in our life, we cannot predict the future. And as a result, we're subject to these changes that we do not see coming. Unfortunately, we can't stop this change though. We are powerless in kind of the power that change presents in front of us. The last type of change I would like to talk about is the change that we actively seek out. The first two, it can't be avoided. However, the third type, we can decide we want to alter our lives, we want to seek out something different that we're not receiving within the lives that we currently lead. In order to help us start looking at this first type of change, the type that changes as a result of the passage of time, I think it's appropriate to look at the changes that happen in the lives of adolescents. And to help in this, think of who you were in 7th grade. Reflect on it a little bit. Some of you might be wearing the same clothes tonight that you wore in the 7th grade.
It's probably right.
Different size, absolutely.
Just a different size.
Some of you, think of the bands you listen to. Think of who your absolute best friends were. Do you still know those people here today? So looking at the changes that we undergo throughout our lives, when did those friends fall out of favor? When did that passion fall out of favor? When did you stop listening to that music? Did you actively mark it on your calendar and say, hey, I no longer appreciate this music, I've moved on to this? Probably not. So with this type of change, for me, when I was in 7th grade Luke wanted to become a public speaker. Hey Luke, this is a speech about change. However, my route to achieve that was much, much different than the one I had planned, and it changed along the way. And so 7th grade Luke wanted to become a motivational speaker because he had seen 2 prior public speakers come and visit his middle school. So in 6th grade, we had a speaker come, and he was from the south side of Chicago. And so he spent his time on stage talking about the difficulties he faced being raised by a single mother in a very, very chaotic situation. He found from a young age he got involved with gangs, got involved with drugs, and ended with him serving a 15-year sentence as a result of drug charges because of a run-in with the law. And from this, the hard way, he has learned a lesson that you should not do this because it will drastically change your life. Lesson learned. The next year, we were treated to someone a little bit different. Different background, much more privileged growing up. Who we heard from was a former finance minister for a national bank. And he recounted how he had it all. He had the $1 million house, he had the wonderful wife, the beautiful children, and the amazing, amazing job that he found so fulfilling. Unfortunately though, after a night of drinking, he found himself behind the wheel of a car and ended the lives of a family of 3. After serving his sentence, he was now out helping share and trying to make sure that other people do not have to go through such difficult life-altering changes that he did. So I knew it. A light bulb went off in my head. This is what I want to do. At 7th grade, I said, I want to share a message. And the message is this. You do not need to screw up. You do not need to make bad choices. You simply need to listen to your parents, do your homework, eat your vegetables, and you'll be just fine. It's a message. It's a great message. I spoke this message with the extreme arrogance of a pretentious 7th grader. And truth be told, even though I was only in 7th grade, I was pretentious at an 11th grade level. Which, if you've ever spoken to any high school juniors lately, you know what a big accomplishment this is to accomplish as only a 7th grader. My parents were very, very proud. And with this, at this point in my life, I thought I knew everything. However, I was unaware that changes would take place in my life. I would come over the next couple of years to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't my dream in life, this isn't what I want to do. I found other purposes, these initial light bulb ideas that I had certainly faded out of favor. And so with this, to be young again, to have kind of this pretentious view that I understand what's going on, is something that it's easy to poke fun at teenagers and say, yeah, they're teenagers, they don't know anything. However, we do the same thing as adults on a constant and daily basis. We make short-term plans, we make long-term plans, and in this planning process, we fail to consider that who we are today is not who we are going to be when those plans actually come to fruition. We fail to calculate the power that change has in our lives. So with this, I aged. I went through my adolescent period. I found myself a senior in high school. No longer was I pursuing public speaking. No longer was that my goal in life. I had found other things. Senior year of high school, I would identify as a jock. That was what I did and who I was. Academics was a secondary purpose to attending high school. I was a 3-sport athlete, played hockey, soccer, and tennis, and that is what I lived to do. So much so that I had parlayed it into a scholarship at the College of St. Scholastica to be a starting freshman on their soccer team, which again isn't something that's easily accomplished. That was what I was living for, that was my identity. That is who I had changed into. However, change would have a different plan, which brings us into the second type of change I want to talk about, which is the change of the unexpected. While playing in a hockey game in 2005, I was doing what I had done hundreds if not thousands of times before in my hockey career. As a good Minnesotan boy, I could nearly skate as soon as I could walk. I loved the game. And so I found myself in an overtime period on the ice for the puck drop. The puck was dropped, their team won the face-off, and promptly shot it into our defensive zone. I turned and chased it again, doing a behavior, doing a skill that I have employed hundreds, if not thousands of times prior. And when I caught up to that puck, change occurred. I got just enough of a bump to send me headfirst into the boards. And the result was an incomplete spinal cord injury, which at the time, I didn't know anything about. But change happened, so I learned. But what I knew at that time when I was sitting fully conscious on the ice is that I could not move from the neck down. I could not feel from the neck down, which is a pretty shocking change. Because if I identify exclusively on my ability to be able to participate in sports, to be this jock that I claim to be, who am I now? Change had happened. And with this unexpected change, it is extremely jarring. And a few characteristics about it is that at first, we cannot fully understand the ramifications of these sorts of changes. Whether it's a spinal cord injury, whether it's job loss, or even, the more happy things. Hey, you're not just having a baby, but you're having twins. Being able to know that change is present in your life in these jarring and shocking moments isn't enough to simply overcome them. It requires time for you to process and understand how it will affect your life. I remember while I was laying on that ice, the first thing that crossed my mind was, my girlfriend's going to be upset with me. And the reason was the day I got hurt was our 9-month anniversary. Yeah, I got a wow from up here, which in high school, that's a big deal. 9 months? But unfortunately, that wasn't the only thing that crossed my mind that night. It went from this kind of insignificant date that I had planned, more to, will I be able to play tennis in the spring? Will I be able to walk again? Will I be able to be a parent? Will I be married? Will I be able to get educated? And all of the other plans I had set in place the rest of my life had now been altered as a result of change. Which brings us to the next aspect of unexpected change, the bright spot in this. When unexpected change strikes us, the benefit we have is we have a choice. We can decide how we are going to respond to change. We can either sit idly and let change affect who we are and what will happen to us, or we can actively seek out ways to modify our lives to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Which brings us to the third aspect, the chosen change, and how we can choose the changes we want to see. And I understand that recovering from paralysis isn't as easy as just positive thought. I was very, very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time in terms of our medical understanding of spinal cord injuries. And my injury is extremely unique to those who are similarly injured. However, one of the first conversations I had after my injury with my father was that, look, sports are out. We get it. However, you still have your mind. And what it was a change of mindset. That, hey, yes, I cannot play hockey, yes, I cannot play these sports. However, I can still lead a life that is worth living, that is beneficial, and even if I did not get the physical recovery that I was fortunate enough to have, I could still achieve. The other aspects of chosen change don't require tragic job loss, tragic injury, or any of those sorts of things to occur. These are the types of change that we oftentimes see taking place here in these very rooms at these Toastmasters gatherings. And to help me kind of demonstrate this power of this change is that oftentimes we find ourselves in routines. And routines are comfortable. You got the job you wanted, you have the house you wanted, you have the 2.6 kids you wanted. You have everything that you had intended to set out to achieve. However, it breeds routine, and routine breeds complacency. In our lives, oftentimes we become complacent. We think that, hey, we got it all, everything's happy, why change a thing? And the problem with this is because as soon as you stop growing, as soon as you stop developing and trying to change yourself, you're giving up on an excellent opportunity to learn more, to know more, to do more, to be more. And so with this chosen change, these pants that I'm wearing tonight are actually symbolic of something much, much bigger. These pants were actually a gift to me. And there's an old Native American proverb that goes that you cannot truly understand a man until you have walked a mile in his moccasins. Tonight, I subject that you cannot truly know a man until you walk a mile in his tartan pants. So these pants were a gift from one of my Scottish physical therapists. His name is Dr. Steve Finn. He is an exchange student from Scotland who was helping me throughout my recovery process. And in the last decade that has passed since my injury, he had gone on, gotten his doctorate, and had one of the most respected physical therapy jobs that exists in the field of physical therapy at the Mayo Clinic. And last year, he gave it all up. He decided that he wanted a change in his life. Ever since I had known him, even though I was 17, he shared with me his passion for brewing beer. Which is a far, far... Yeah, that's good. Yay, beer. And so through this, he pursued that dream that he had. He pursued and wanted the change in his life. He found it extremely rewarding to treat patients. However, he finds it extremely rewarding to brew a product that people can enjoy, and to provide a space for people to come together over drinks and have conversations that sometimes aren't had without a little bit of help from that social leadership. And from this, I submit to you all that we ourselves can challenge complacency. A quote from John Shedd states that a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are intended for. That's not what ships do. And so although we might be safe in the harbor of complacency, we may not have to confront the difficulties of taking that jump, taking that leap, taking that risk to get to the next level. That's not what humans are intended to do. Humans are intended for much, much more than that. We are intended to change. We are intended to increase our understanding and our abilities that we have. So to you tonight, I wish you all safe travels and happy sailing as you embark out to find great, wonderful beaches, wonderful new aspects of the things that you can encounter by actively engaging in change. Mr. Toastmaster.
Luke, for embracing change and for coming out here and presenting tonight. We want to present to you the District 6 Above and Beyond Grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.